Hey everybody, what's up? It's me, it's Pete, and I'm back with the final edition of Pete Plays Tyranny. I know I've been quiet recently, somewhat quiet, but I'm back to celebrate, finishing this game and really enjoying it, honestly. I took a break from doing the commentary and things like that because honestly, I was finding it less enjoyable than playing solo. And you gotta do stuff sometimes for you. So I got one last conversation, I think, to have with Verse, and then I'm heading over to kind of go to where the game ends. Fatebinder. I never thought that anyone could get the jump on the voices of Nerat, who I killed prior episode, or 2 episodes ago. He outlasted most of his enemies and ate the others. He was this great bottomless thing. I just assumed that he would be around forever. And now he's dead. It's hard to believe, really. I'm happy, but he also gave me this life, this name. I hated him, but he was incredible, an artist. What I'm trying to say is that I'm impressed. You've exceeded my low expectations. You think he's really dead? If we're being honest with each other, I have my doubts. The voices could scheme 1,000 steps ahead of anyone. I can only imagine that he had something planned for his death, some contingency. It could be so complex that we might never recognize if we saw it. It might not even happen in our lifetimes if we're lucky. Thanks, Verse. Alright, let's head over to the Mountain Spire, which was where the next thing was happening. I'm not sure if this is the last thing, but I think it is. Everything seems to be leading up to this moment, but I'm not sure what happens here at this time. I believe I have to cast an edict. Issue an edict upon the Northern Kingdom. Okay, I can do that. Waves of energy radiating from the spire draw you forward, pressing your body and mind to its eager embrace. At the center of this tide, the resonator stands ready to broadcast your voice, echoing your commandments to the farthest reaches of the tiers and beyond. From here, the highest point in all the peninsula, you could, with the sum total of your effort, project your will far north, past the edge of the tiers, and proclaim your edict as far as the lands of the Northern Empire. I could turn to my companions and say, this probably amounts to a declaration of war against the Overlord. Ready? Or I could turn to my companions and say, any requests? Or I could touch the resonator and concentrate. Or mutter something gently, test the resonator. Say, I am the last Archon standing in the tiers. It's time to send word to Kairos. The conquest is complete. I could affirm my loyalty to Kairos and send news of your successful conquest. I could relax for a moment and ponder the situation. I'm gonna do the first one. This probably amounts to a declaration of war against the Overlord. Ready? Verse says, so this is it. We've come a long way since entering ruins. I never before this. I was nothing important. One Scarlet Chorus killer amongst thousands. But we're really doing something here. Thanks for letting me tag along. She turns to the edge of the spire, avoiding your gaze. Barrick does not show any signs of waking from his numb stupor. Lantry says, following your progress has been, well, one of the great pleasures of my career. You've shown yourself to be something greater than I ever expected. I'd rather self-indulgent fantasies of being the primary authority on the world's most fascinating figure. I'm eager to see you wherever this takes us, my friend. I could say, if I don't show Kairos my ability to cast the edict is more than a one-time thing, the attacks will never stop. Or this will be an opening strike. Perhaps the tiers will conquer the Northern Empire. I'm going to use the first one. Striking the Overlord where it hurts. Good. I hope the old codpiece feels it from his throne room. Take your best swing. She nods to the resonator at the center of the spire. The spire awaits your command. Let's issue an edict. Northern Empire. We could set it ablaze, which I think is what I'm going to do. Let's set it on fire. I'm floating. I am casting.
The Tears have been conquered, unified at last under a single banner.
It's chugging.
Your edict brings devastation and ruin to the Northern Empire.
What the hell? Why is it chugging so?
Some believe the edict to be Kairos' work. Others hope, or fear, that this edict comes from a new voice. Kairos' forces withdraw from their march upon the Tears, as they are sent into disarray by your edict. United under the Scarlet Banner, the Tearsmen are reborn as your loyal servants, bound to you by fear and shared victory. The Overlord's conquest of the known world has come to a halt, and the whisper of a challenger to Kairos' power slowly spreads throughout the land.
Your Edict of Fire ignites an unstoppable conflagration in the northern capital, reducing buildings to cinder and sending walls of fire through populated streets. Before anyone knew what was happening, the flames had already burned out of control. All who suffer cry out in agony and confusion that Kairos would allow such a fate to befall the city. As chaos ensued in the northern kingdom, the armies marching on the Tears received an unprecedented order. The armies were to fall back to the capital and ensure the safety of its people from the edict. For the first time in Kairos' great conquest, the armies retreated. Soon questions would be asked in a hushed breath across the lands about what new and terrible power had emerged that could force the hand of the Overlord. You fulfilled Kairos' decree, and all the Tears is now ruled by a single Archon. Your former rivals have either submitted to you or perished, bringing the civil war to a close. In their pride, the disfavored never imagined themselves beaten, especially when their opponents appeared so disorganized. The last remnants of the Legion disperse, their general destroyed, their honor broken beyond mending. The scorn that follows their humbled ranks haunts them even in the depths of obscurity. The Scarlet Chorus, true to form, were quick to change allegiance once the voices of Nayrat died. They pledged their devotion to you, hoping to gain your favor. In the months following your victory, emissaries of the surviving gang bosses present offerings and totems of fealty. But without a devoted taskmaster to keep them in line, their flimsy power structure collapses, reducing the Scarlet Chorus to a whisper of its former self. Under your guidance, those who resisted the conquest and sowed discontent are vanquished, the rebellion brought to a decisive end. Any lingering question of who is the true ruler of the Tears is answered by your impact. Your impact on the reconstructed nation. Word of your success spreads beyond the Tears as well. Even the most distant corners of the Empire whisper of the Fatebinder who rose to become an Archon, and an Archon whose intervention shattered the conquest, making way for a new future in the devastated nation. While you managed to unite the Tears under a single banner through conquest, losing the support of the Overlord's armies makes the work of maintaining this order all the more difficult. Loyalties weaken and slip, but you make a point of taking a personal hand in the country's new governance. After time and struggle, the Tearsmen begin to see themselves as citizens of a unified land. With the Edict of Stone dispelled, the earth settles around the Stone Sea, ushering a new age of verdant growth and prosperity. The country may never resemble the glorious realm of Azure, but with new life, many things become possible. The memory of Karen as a great force of destruction remains as a monument of inert rock. Most agree that the world is better off without the Archon of Stone, as the people of Azure begin to slowly reclaim the land that was once torn asunder by his power. With the Edict of Stone dispelled, you ensure that humans will once again populate the former realm of Azure. The Stonestalker tribe is gradually pushed out of their new territory, and those who don't resist are enslaved, put to work rebuilding new human settlements. The death of the Radix is a huge blow to the disfavored. Without the support of the Mage Guild, the Legion finds itself outclassed for the first time and suffers on the battlefield. The Edict of Storms never stops its relentless assault on the ruins of mighty Stalwart. Sentinel's stand keeps falling further into disrepair, the wind wall separating it from any would-be conquerors. The fate of those inside the fortress still remains a mystery. You played the Censor's game and emerged victorious, retrieving the Silent Archive from the Velm Citadel. When asked to turn it over, you decided it was better off in your possession. Instead, you sent the Censor to Cacophony as a gift for the voices of Nayrat. When you handed the Velm Citadel to the Scarlet Chorus, you consigned centuries of knowledge to the pitiless treatment of marauding gangs. There is no telling how much history and lore their irrelevant hands ripped from the world. You only know that the Scarlet Chorus took pleasure in their work. The sages are all but wiped from the tiers. What remains of their hoarded knowledge is vulnerable, as likely to be misused as destroyed. The damage done to the intellectual core of the region is likely beyond reversal. Though small groups of would-be scholars gain influence from time to time, the setback is ultimately too vast to overcome. The Scarlet Chorus rules Lethian's Crossing with signature cruelty. They perform regular midnight raids against homes or businesses, making examples of the locals and keeping dissenters in check. Locked doors and shuttered windows become the new standard of life as the citizens grow into their new sense of fear and paranoia. By returning the Magebane helm to Lethian's Crossing, you ensured the Bane would not be able to get into the city. For the time being, the threat of a Bane incursion is dispelled. The settlers are grateful to go about their lives unburdened by this peril, though knowing how close they came to annihilation haunts them. They hope that the security you provided endures. Sending the Forgebound Master to the voices of Nayrat strikes a blow to the Forgebound, and the very art of ironsmithing suffers terrible setbacks. It takes many years to recover or relearn the delicate subtlety of crafting fine weapons and arms. The Forgebound continue to create weapons, but their quality is suspect. By enacting an edict on Vendrine's Well, you announced your power to the world and showed Kairos' forces that you were capable of. When you defeated their leader and scattered the army before you, it sent the message to Kairos. A new Archon is born. While the edict dissipated, its effect will always be felt as the first true threat to Kairos' rule. The disfavored of Graven Ash means the end of the disfavored. Without the comfort and support of the great general, what remains of the Legion sinks into hopelessness. The Archon's seat is left vacant, and whether or not it can be occupied again is a heated topic. Far from his place of final rest, the Northern Empire mourns its fallen son. Killing the voices of Nayrat spreads the joy of bloody vengeance across the continent. Celebrated as the death of history's greatest parasite, the occasion is marked by all who suffered under the oppression of the Scarlet Chorus. Even in victory, one thought nags you. Though you witnessed his death, you can't help but wonder if the voices of Nayrat is done with you. Tunon, the Adjudicator, continues to dispense justice from his seat in Bastard City. He follows the laws you craft to the letter, advising on any of the meticulous changes you lack the time or the patience to draft. Without his aid, the task of keeping order in the tiers would be nigh impossible. The death of Blood and Mark deprived the world of a most capable murderer. One less bedtime story to scare children is no significant loss, though you can't help but glance at the dark corners of every room and feel as if something is watching you. Blood and Mark will always cast a shadow on your life. The death of Graven Ash left Barrick a shadow of his former self. He follows you for a time, as much out of habit as reflex. All agree that there is nothing of him left under the iron shell. He departs your company without a word, assuming a position at a crossroads where he allows himself to rust as solid as any statue. Verse finds herself adrift in the relative peace that follows your conquest. She returns to the field and seeks out young women from rural communities, imparting her fighting skills to only the most passionate. Over the course of many apprentices, she follows the voices of Nayrat's example and forms a personal army, the Callous Sisterhood. Verse proves to be a strictly teacher, and you hire her services often, confident that she'll take any assignment where there's blood to be spilled. Lantry keeps close watch over you, scribbling his account of your deeds and accomplishments. In his tireless quest to fill the chronicle with history and knowledge, he follows you even into his twilight years, and together you learn much about the world. You pretend not to notice Lantry's waning strength, though you find yourself pausing mid-sentence to let his writing catch up. He recognizes your generous ruse and appreciates it in silence. Exhausted from fighting, Ebb shifts her focus to the broken school of Tidecasters. She recruits as many talented students as possible, but apprentices are difficult to find in the tense post-war tiers. The few who are drawn to her teachings show promise, and Ebb has little doubt that the Tidecasters can return to their former strength in less than a decade or two. The going will be hard for some time, though. With no desire to remain in the company of humans, Kills in Shadow returns to the wilderness and seeks out her own kind. She discovers a haggard community of beastmen who abandon the realms of Haven and Azure, only to be enslaved by Kairos' forces. Out of this rabble of defectors, she forges a tribe, their nomadic ways respecting no established border or law. They raid villages and caravans when possible, glutting on the spoils and boasting of their severed ties with the human world. Though a large bounty follows in the tribe's wake, no human can survive the hunt for its leader. Siren grows quiet over time, speaking little and forgoing her songs as she distances herself from the military. One day, she simply walks out of camp and makes for the wilderness of the Tears. Rumors reach your ear that Siren has occupied an abandoned mountainside temple, her vow of silence drawing a small group of respectful followers. You leave her in peace. Though you once professed loyalty to Kairos, popular belief holds that the world cannot support two overlords, and you now represent a threat to the established order. This leaves your future in question, with one certainty. When Kairos retaliates, you will be ready. From your perch atop the ancient spire, you can see hints of the Northern Empire just beyond the mountains. At your command, horns shout a triumphant cry across the valley, heralding the end of one long campaign and the beginning of another. So that's it! We did it! It's done! Weird. How weird to be done with that game. I started this back in July, for reference. It's now mid-October, so about a 3-month process to finish this up, but I really like this game, and I feel like it came together really well at the end. The ending is definitely abrupt, especially considering like you gather a lot of power as the game goes on, and you like suddenly have all these spires that you can do cool stuff with, and then it's just like, not really. So, they seem like they're setting up a sequel for a clash with Kairos, which would be cool. I would love to see a sequel of this game. Really good, fun game. They handle decision making really well. I'm gonna do a review of this in a couple of weeks, and finish up my thoughts on it. But if you happen to make it to this episode, or you're just watching the last one to see me finish, yeah, thanks. This was fun. Sorry I didn't truly see it through the end, but I wanted to have fun with it, so I did what was best for me and my enjoyment of the game. It happens. Thanks for watching. This has been Pete Plays Tyranny. Catch more stuff on anygamesforplay.com. And for now, goodbye.